She closed her eyes, feeling the soft breeze against her skin, but it did nothing to cool the ache that had settled deep within her heart. Every breath she took was heavy with memories of a love that had once burned so brightly, now reduced to a whisper in the quiet of her soul. Her thoughts drifted to him, Alexander, the man who had once been her everything. She could still remember the first time they met. It had been years ago, on a warm summer evening, at the same lake where she now stood. He had approached her with that warm smile of his, the one that made her heart race, the one that had made her believe in something greater than herself. His eyes, a deep shade of blue, had drawn her in as if they were the very ocean itself, offering comfort and endless possibilities. She had been nervous at first, unsure of how to respond to his quiet charm. But Alexander had always known how to make her feel safe, even when the world around her was anything but. Amelia, he had said, his voice soft but filled with certainty. The world is full of moments like this, quiet, peaceful. But I want to share them all with you. And from that moment on, they had become inseparable. They spent their days wandering the hills, laughing under the stars, and whispering promises to each other that felt as if they were carved into the very fabric of time. Every touch, every shared glance, seemed to seal their bond in ways that words never could. To Amelia, Alexander was more than a lover, he was her protector, her best friend, the person who made her believe in the beauty of life, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. But time, as it does with all things, began to change everything. As the seasons passed, Alexander's health began to decline. At first, it was small things. He would tire more easily, his steps slower, his smile less frequent. But then came the diagnosis. It was a cruel word, a word that none of them had ever truly understood until that moment: cancer. The doctors had said it was advanced, and there was little they could do. The coldness of those words had shattered Amelia's world. She remembered that day so clearly, the sterile hospital room, the white walls that seemed to close in around her, and the sound of Alexander's labored breathing as he tried to smile at her, as if to reassure her. But there was no reassurance. There was only pain, a sharp, gnawing pain that seemed to settle in her chest and would not leave. Amelia did everything she could to help him, but there was so little she could do. She stayed by his side, offering him comfort, always trying to hide the fear in her heart. She made sure to remind him of their love every single day, even when the world felt like it was slipping through her fingers. There were moments when she would hold him close, the warmth of his embrace grounding her, making her believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. But deep down, Amelia knew it wouldn't be. The pain of watching him suffer was a burden she couldn't put into words. The very sight of him growing weaker with each passing day was like a slow and deliberate tear in the fabric of her soul. Every time he winced in pain, it felt as if she, too, were being torn apart. But she never let him see her tears. She couldn't. She had to be strong, for him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with hues of orange and purple, Alexander turned to her with a faint smile on his face. His hair had thinned, and his once vibrant eyes were now shadowed with exhaustion. But even in that state, there was a glimmer of the man she had fallen in love with. "Amelia," he whispered, his voice soft, fragile. "I don't have much time left, do I?" She shook her head, her throat tight, unwilling to say the words aloud. She had known for a while, but hearing him speak them broke something deep inside her. "No," she finally said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "But I will always be here. With you. Until the very end." And she meant it. She would never leave him, no matter how much it hurt. The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits, pain management, and moments of fleeting joy where they would talk about their dreams, the things they would do if the world had given them more time. But even those small moments of peace couldn't stop the inevitable. Alexander grew weaker. His breaths became ragged, his once strong hands now trembling as they clung to hers. It was in those final moments, as he lay in the hospital bed, surrounded by the sterile, cold walls, that Amelia understood the true meaning of sacrifice. She had always thought love was about the good times, the laughter, the joy, the shared moments of happiness. But love was also about standing by someone even when there was no hope left, about holding them when they felt like they were slipping away from this world. And that's what she did. She held him, even when he was no longer able to hold her. She whispered words of love, telling him that everything would be okay, even though she didn't believe it herself. She would not let him go alone, not without her. "I love you, Amelia," he whispered, his voice barely audible, but still full of love. And with that, Alexander closed his eyes for the last time. The man who had been her everything, the one she had shared her heart with so completely, was gone. The world seemed to stop. The silence in the room was deafening. Amelia's heart shattered, but she didn't cry. Not at first. She sat there, holding his hand, waiting for the warmth to return to his skin, but it never did. The days after his death were a blur of grief. Amelia found it hard to breathe without him beside her. The empty space where he used to be felt like a void that could never be filled. She wandered through the motions of life, but it was as if the world had lost its color. Yet, amid the pain, there was something she couldn't ignore, a lingering warmth, a memory that refused to die. His love. It was that love that kept her moving forward. It was a love so powerful, so unrelenting, that even in his absence, it held her together. She began to find strength in the small things, the way the sun rose every morning, the way the stars shone brightly at night, just like they had when they were together. She would go to the lake where they had first met, and she would feel him there with her. His love wasn't gone, it had become a part of her. And so, with each passing day, Amelia learned to live with the pain. She learned that love wasn't just about moments of happiness, it was about the sacrifices we make for those we love, even when it feels like the weight of the world is too much to bear. It was about embracing the ones we love, not just in the good times, but in the times when the world is falling apart. As time moved on, Amelia found peace, though it was never complete. She would carry the memory of Alexander with her, a memory that was both painful and beautiful. And in her heart, there was always that quiet embrace, his arms around her, his love surrounding her, even when he was no longer there. The lake, once a place of meeting, became a place of reflection, a place where Amelia could feel his presence, a place where the tears she had cried could wash away. And in those tears, she found a kind of release, a kind of freedom. Beyond the tears, beyond the heartache, there was something greater. Something that would never fade. The unrelenting power of love. And even though Alexander was no longer with her in body, his love would forever be etched in her soul, a love that transcended time and death. Amelia would carry that love for the rest of her days, her heart always a little broken but always full. And when she closed her eyes at night, she would remember the warmth of his embrace and know that, in some way, they were still together, forever.